I would always want to listen and please them and do what they say, but at the end of the day, we all have our own kind of personality, and there's no point waiting around it.
How hard was it for you to break out of that then? 'Cause it must be quite challenging, you know, as you said, from your sort of background and culture, very strong beliefs as I know, but how hard was that?
The last year and a half.
Welcome back to the Property Newbies podcast. And today I'm joined by Lina Akhtar, who specialises in rent-to-rent serviced accommodation. We're going to be talking about her journey of why she started a rent-to-rent SA business. So stick around, this one's not one to be missed. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you. No, thank you for having me on. I'm really honoured to be here.
No problem. So one of the things I like to do and start off on these podcasts is to really ask you to tell us something quirky or different or unusual about yourself that maybe people won't know.
Unusual. I have a lot of hobbies. My most recent one was building my own PC. Not a lot of people would guess that about me. Yeah.
Yep. Building your own PC.
Building my own PC,
from scratch.
From scratch, getting all the parts.
The hardware, everything.
Yeah. Almost pulled my hair out because of it.
Wow.
Because it was really annoying.
Yeah.
But it was worth it in the end, yeah.
No, brilliant. And just give us an intro of who you are then. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, so my name's Lina Akhtar. I basically do serviced accommodation. I also do a little bit of deal selling, but my forte is mostly rent to rent. I started my journey almost a year and a half ago. Before that, I had a career in insurance broking, and haven't looked back since. Definitely really enjoy it. And I feel like because I tried loads of business ventures in the past, and SA is by far the best way that you can become financially free.
Okay, interesting. We'll come back on some of those points there, but for the people who maybe haven't heard of rent to rent or SA, can you just give us an overview of what it is?
So rent to rent is when you rent off the landlord and then you rent it out to tenants or guests, depending if you're doing a HMO or depending if you're doing a serviced accommodation. HMO just means housing multiple occupancy, like a house share. And the rent-to-rent model is basically scalable. It is low entry barrier as opposed to purchasing a buy-to-let where you have to put down a huge deposit. And service accommodation is basically Airbnbs. It is hotels but with more space, and you can do it in apartments, you can do it in houses, and the markets are just not limited to tourism. There's loads of different markets that you can reach out to, but that's essentially in a nutshell what service accommodation in the rent-to-rent model is.
Yeah. Okay. And why did you choose rent-to-rent service accommodation specifically over anything else?
So I discovered Airbnbs way back in 2018. Obviously, didn't have the money to do it, and nor did I have the courage to do it. I think I was 21 at the time. So I was only just recently starting the whole 9-to-5 thing. I was a new graduate, so kind of parked it, but I researched it on and off for a couple of years. And then when I was 24, that was when I actually purchased a home for my family, a 5-bed home. So I did the whole traditional thing of going, working for a 9-to-5 for a couple of years, saving up, and then purchasing a house. And then I was back to square one. And that was just when I realized I don't want to do this any longer. I don't want to work a 9-to-5 just to save up to, afford a necessity, afford a house that can actually, fit me and my family. And I didn't want to go through that again. And so I figured I will go look into Airbnbs again. And then when I did, I found the rent-to-rent model and just studied it basically. And then went to loads of networking events, and then eventually took the plunge back in mostly 2022 is where my journey started.
Yeah. Okay. This is interesting. So you said you first started really looking into the Airbnb model back in 2018, but it sounds like there was no real progress for 3-4 years for whatever reason it is, and then you really took the plunge in 2022. So was there a pivotal moment of why 2022? Did something happen, or was it just you just knew now I'm going to go for it?
I just didn't want to wait around any longer. I had already waited all that time. I started it all the way back in, like I said, 2018. I didn't do anything. I just sat on it. And then as I got older, I just kind of realized, when else am I going to be able to risk it all? If, for example, if I wanted to start a family, it's going to be a lot more harder to do it at that point than it is now. And I just figured, where there's a will, there's a way. Like, even if I don't have the savings to start rent to rent, I'm sure there are ways to do it, and there was. For me, I did deal selling in order to raise funds for my Airbnb, my SA business. The thing is, that opened so many opportunities for me that working it in kind of a 9 to 5 like wouldn't have. There was no way I would be able to, you know, work so little hours for the same amount of pay that I get in my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That is only you can only do that through, I feel like, rent to rent.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about your sort of your background and your upbringing then. What was that like growing up then, and what's your sort of, you know, understanding around money and finance and business? Did you have that sort of upbringing or?
Yeah, so you know, like any kind of girl from my kind of background, there was a lot of sheltered kind of protection. Like you know, I always say my vision of the world was as big as a keyhole, because there was so much I didn't know. Not just like you know, like personal finance wise, business wise. Knowing in I'm the first person in my family to start a business, and I mean by family I also mean extended family.
Amazing.
That's the thing. Everyone is kind of taught to conform. You just get a 9 to 5 and just stick with it. I also don't like saying what I'm gonna do. I usually like doing it first and then saying it afterwards, because I knew if I had gone to, you know, my family saying, oh, by the way, I'm gonna start a rent to rent Airbnb business, like I just knew that there wouldn't be a lot of faith or support. Yeah, it'd be a lot of more like doubts, and then I just didn't need that. I knew what I wanted to do, and I was going to go and do it, and I was motivated, and so I went ahead and did it. And then the minute I got my first property, I was like, by the way, I'm doing this at the moment. So growing up from a low income household as well, there was a lot I had to like kind of pave my way in the property world to do. A lot of people can depend on, you know, parents or friends or you know, they started together. For me, I had to start all by myself, and basically take the plunge, because if I hadn't have done that, then I would have just been sat in the same place where I'm working a 9 to 5 that I'm not happy about, and just listening to what they're saying. I would always want to listen and please them and do what they say, but at the end of the day, we all have our own kind of personalities, we all have our own agency. It's just for us to act on that, and there's no point waiting around anymore.
How hard was it for you to break out of that then? Because it must be quite challenging, you know, as you said, from your sort of background and culture, very strong beliefs as I know, but how hard was that?
Yeah, it was actually quite difficult. To be fair, the last year and a half, I didn't really feel it. I was doing everything by myself. I was in a mad rush to get everything done. And it wasn't only until actually recently where I kind of had like a wobble, where everything just started catching up to me, and it's like it's so much pressure you put on yourself when you're doing it alone. There's no one to talk to out loud about it. Your friends and family won't get it. It's just something that you kind of have to like take on the chin and just move on. I just don't want to. I feel like if you kind of rely on, you know, what other people say and, you know, what they think is best for you, then it's just only going to hinder you. You know, mental health is a big thing. I mean, I've always like dealt with depression. I think after university, I actually started dealing with depression, because I just didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And then in education, you're kind of protected. You know, you always think, oh, like in the future. But then when the future happens, you're like, what do I do now?
What do I do now?
Exactly.
I'm in the real world now.
Exactly. And it's just, I just don't want to. I don't want to live my life where I am constantly restricted. I am, you know, always thinking about, you know, what everyone else wants. I think it's just better to live life in how you want it, in your best interest, because that's what everyone else is doing. So you should just do it too, because no one else helped me when I was doing this. So
Do you have a supportive network now then? Are your family supportive now, and do you have other people around you that are supportive of what you're doing, or do you still feel quite lonely in this entrepreneurial journey, I suppose?
Yeah, I think it's still a little bit lonely. It's getting there. It's getting better. It was actually quite funny. I actually had a phone call with my so I'm the oldest child, and there's no one ever to rely on. And then I needed help with this one thing, and I genuinely asked my cousin brother. I genuinely didn't expect him to help me. To be fair, I just wanted to try it and see, like, oh well, at least I tried all the methods. But then he rang me up, and then the last time I spoke to him was 5 years ago. So we're not close at all. And then he rang me up, and then he was genuinely being so supportive. He was being, he was literally saying, like, checking up on me, and that alone is something that I hadn't like received in such a long time, like since starting this journey. And I was like so appreciative because I didn't expect it, especially not from him. But the thing is, I just knew he got it because he was also the oldest child, and he also kind of dealt with the same kind of sheltered kind of environment that I did.
Yeah.
And he's doing like great things now. And a lot of advice that he gave me was, try not to look at other people, like how they're doing, compare yourself, because if they're working with someone, think of it as like a cheat. Like if you're doing it by yourself, no one can like catch up to you when you're doing that. And even though it's hard now, it's only temporary. And that's the thing. Like that's what I'm always motivated by, just the bigger picture. And I think once I've achieved that, the support will eventually naturally fall into place.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about mindset, because I'm guessing you've got a really strong mindset, and that's really helped you get through this sort of this journey of what you're doing, building this business. How has your mindset changed since starting this your SA rent-to-rent business?
I think I don't rely on systems so much, because for example, say you want to go into a 9 to 5, you want to get a job, the more salary you get, the more hours you're expected to work. But when you're an entrepreneur, when you're a business owner, the more money you make, the less you have to work, because everything becomes more systemized. So so that's the thing. So I feel like that's how my mindset has changed, where it's more innovative. It's not in a box. It's not black and white. There's no rules to abide by. If you want something, you can definitely go get it. There's no excuses. For example, when I went to go get my first property, I needed a guarantor. I had nobody to ask for a guarantor. That meant if I didn't have a guarantor, that I would not be able to take it on. So what I ended up doing, I sold that deal to get raised capital, and then what I did is I spoke to landlords, because I knew landlords wouldn't need a guarantor as much as letting agents would, because that property was from a letting agent. And then I got that property off a landlord with the funds I raised. So you have to be resourceful, and I think that has really kind of really helped me steal up a bit more, as opposed to being like a yes man as I used to be before, like in a day job.
Yeah. That's a good point there, actually, because we did have a few questions from some of the listeners around, how did you actually start your SA business? How did you get that first property? And you kind of touched upon it a bit there. But in terms of timescales, then, if you acquiring that one there, so I know you spoke about the guarantor, how you had to then sell that particular deal, which means you lost that deal, but then you had money for the next one. What was the sort of the timeline of that process?
So when I first started my journey, I did so much networking. I think I had 2 or 3 months where it's back-to-back networking, because I wanted to really put my name out there. It wasn't because I had done enough learning. I started it way back in 2018, so I wanted to get my face known, get to know other people that I could eventually create business off of. So I did that, and then after that, I started, securing properties. Like I mentioned, I found that one from a letting agent. Couldn't find a guarantor, so that meant I couldn't take it on. Started selling deals, and after that, I actually sold more deals after that, because once you've done it once, it becomes a lot easier. So I started selling more. I think I raised around I think it was around 5K in total that I raised from everything. And then I also had, I think, 3K in the bank that I could use. So altogether, that was enough to furnish a single property. And I got it off a landlord, and he was a portfolio landlord, my first SA. So he actually passed on a few others as well. And that was how I was able to like scale pretty fast to 3 within like my first year, because usually people don't achieve 3, I don't think, in their first year, unless they're doing it with someone else, because then it's like you're splitting the cost and doubling the manpower. But by myself, that's how I was able to do it. And then from there, I've literally just I've started my social media journey, and been able to like build more business through deal selling, and eventually more essays. I'm going to be taking on a block soon, so that'll be exciting. Just need to wait for the renovations to finish, but but that's basically, in a very quick rundown. That was how it started from point A to now.
Yeah. And are you able to share numbers on your SA business and how that all works in terms of, what you're making per unit or as a collective? Are you open to share that?
Yeah, so all three properties that I have at the moment generate around 8K a month. That's the thing. The properties that I chose were quite in good locations, so they're able to make that much net profit wise. That you'd kind of basically almost half that because the rent and the bills are usually kind of, I would say, give or take 50% profit margin. So net profit of that is around 4K a month. Haven't included deal selling because deal selling, what I do is I do it few and far between. So one month I could be making 10K, another month I might have only sold one deal, so that might be 3K. So that's how it is for now. And then I work 10 hours a week on most of these essays because I built up a system, I built up processes, and so that requires little oversight from me. And I'm earning more than I did when I was working in a 9 to 5, basically.
Yeah. So what's the where are you looking to take this business then? What's the end goal for you?
It'd be scaling, definitely scaling. Taking it because I think when I first started out this journey, I always said I'm going to get 10 essays. That's like the goal. So I'm on my way to getting 10. And then I'm also actually working on a mentorship on the side as well. I honestly didn't think I would, but a lot of people were asking me. I'm curious about like how the whole process is, and I want to kind of give my take on it and make sure it's a very realistic view on essay, and that's basically that's basically what I'm working on at the moment. Yeah.
No, brilliant. Let's circle back to education a bit then. So I know you said you started learning in 2018. What was that learning? Was it self-education? Did you do any courses? You just mentioned mentorship there. Did you invest in any mentors, or what did that look like?
So it's mostly self-taught. I did a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of books. And then like I said, I went to networking, went to workshops. I did. I think the only thing I paid for was like this online thing, but I honestly didn't find it useful because it makes sense because I started it so many years ago, researching it. So I didn't think I need to, but I think for me at the time, the thought process was that let me just see or reaffirm I actually know what I'm doing. So that's why I figured I'd bring out a mentorship because I'm combining all of my knowledge way back from 2018 to now, and I know basically I have a few tricks on my sleeve basically that I've applied it to my own essays. So I feel like that'd be good to include in that.
Yeah. What are these tricks then? Now you mention it.
A magician never tells his tricks. It's quite a few things. I mean, for example, pitch wise, there's a lot of things that you can say to win over, landlords, for example, saying that you work with a lot of companies, which obviously if it's truthful, then you can say that, but if it's not, then don't say it. But say, for example, if you work in the city, you're going to naturally work with commuters. And then if you're going to work on your advertising, your marketing, and you're going to make sure you're marketing to a certain market, like contractors and stuff, then you're going to be working with, like I said, you're going to be working with companies as guests. So if you bring that up to landlords, they tend to soften a little, saying that, knowing that there's not going to be just like random strangers staying at the property. So
So what are the we talk about objections all the time in sales, I work in sales. What are the most common objections then that you would get from a landlord?
Common objections, they usually say, isn't this subletting? That's a really common one. And they just ask whether it's legal or not. It's definitely legal as long as you have a company let agreement instead of an AST, which is a short hold tenancy agreement. And other things they might say, just like, if they damage the property, that's a really big one. And obviously you're going to take damage deposits. If you don't have damage deposits, or if you're not going to take them, then you will have public liability insurance anyways. So you'll be covered in all aspects. Airbnb also has something called air cover, where Airbnb protects the host for any damages as well, and they'll reimburse you. So you can always mention that all to the landlord, and you can also mention to them that you're also going to be doing a lot more maintenance than the regular tenant. You're going to be checking up on cosmetic wear and tear. You're going to be repairing all of that, and so that way, when they get the keys back to the property, it's in no worse condition than it was originally let.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's how you would answer that kind of objection, because you want to make sure that you know what you're doing, basically.
Yeah. So there's a sort of key selling points there then to really put the landlords at ease then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And the landlords that you work with, typically, what are they? Are they, people that have just acquired properties from inheritance, or are they other investors as well, maybe, or is it a mixture of all of those?
It's definitely a mixture. These days I see a lot of landlords who are companies. So literally, if you look up their company house number, you'll be able to see that they've been trading for this amount of time, and they have a whole bunch of properties. They are, and these companies are, portfolio landlords, like I mentioned. If they're sometimes they are people who are starting out, so landlords who are new landlords who are starting out and eventually want to aim to be portfolio landlords. So I've seen that as well. So I feel like that's the main thing, because I think landlords are kind of similar to us in that sense, because they're also trying to generate income. They're trying to get more assets. Where all we're doing is utilizing their assets, because they're trying to generate income, we're trying to generate income. I feel like it's a mutually beneficial agreement. That is, I haven't seen any landlords who are kind of a standalone. I don't think I've ever seen that. Very rarely. I mean, they might be the one-off person who are have inherited them, but they don't really know what to do with the property usually in that case. So that way, it's kind of more of an easy sell, because then you can really sell yourself, pitch yourself, on how this model will benefit them.
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of hype courses out there on rent to rent. I'm sure you see it all the time. I see it all the time, whether it's Instagram ads, Facebook ads, whatever it is, networking events, in your face around, rent to rent service accommodation, or rent to rent HMO, quit your job in 7 days and be a millionaire and work on the beach and, work for 5 minutes a week. But talk to me about the realities of how hard it is to set up a rent to rent business.
Yeah, a lot of courses really hype the model. They gloss over the fact that securing is a really big stage of the whole property SA journey, because when you're starting out, you're naturally not going to be good at pitching, and I think a lot of people who want to get into SA, they they're impressionable, right? So they want to look at these courses and they think of it as like a miracle solution. It's not a miracle solution. It will equip you with the knowledge that you need, but you have to apply it and you have to be motivated. A word of advice for anyone who is like considering a course, like just make sure that you're really looking into the person behind it, that they are genuine, that they are really trying to help people rather than make a quick buck, and are giving you all the details. Because, for example, I've mentioned this before, securing the property, pitching to the landlord, it's going to be the most hardest part. Just because you don't know your pitch, you don't know how to interact with the landlord, you don't know what to spot out for. You could, find a great landlord, but they could be, I say great landlord, say you could find an agreeable landlord who want to do SA with you, but then they're, charging high rent. And people get desperate to take on a deal because they don't know if they're going to find another deal, but then they take it on and they're not making any profits because the overheads are so high, and that's really detrimental. Definitely do your due diligence in all aspects, and just like be see if they have any other tidbits. Like if these people who are selling courses, see if they have any other tidbits that they are offering, and see how relevant and how applicable those are. So it's like a taster, and then if you want to invest in a course, then invest in it. But I
always say, when it comes to courses and trainers and mentors, is always work with someone who's actively doing the thing as well that you want to learn, because there's a lot of people out there that are just making money from the courses, and regardless of how good the course is or not, I always think it's best to learn from someone who's actually doing it as well. They're in the trenches, they're doing it as well, and they could advise you a lot better as well. So you spoke about due diligence and numbers, etc. How do you go about working out if a deal is a good deal or not when it comes to rent to rent?
So there's not going to be any full way, like accurate way of 100% knowing whether a property is going to perform well, because there's so many variables. It depends on your budget, it depends on the area, it depends on seasonality. We all saw what happened in COVID. Nobody could have expected that.
Jeez.
But there's exactly. but there's a lot of things that you have to be mindful of. Just make sure that you are getting the best rent, the market rent. So before you go to a viewing, go on like Rightmove, find other properties that are similar in the area, similar size, similar standard, and see if the rent of the property that you're viewing matches that of Rightmove or the other properties on Rightmove, because that is then market rent. If they're overcharging, then you can actually show them at the viewing that you're overcharging. Also be conservative with your figures, even if you're upping the nightly rate by £10 over the course of a month. That will add up to a lot. You have to remember, £10 every day adds up to £300 over 30 days. So and that £300 could be your make or break, you making your profits, because there's bills, there is you never know if you might need to carry out any maintenance, loads of things. So always be conservative, do your research, and try and negotiate what you can. If you can negotiate your way out of a deposit, do it. If you can negotiate your way out of basically getting rid of like furniture, like if the property comes like part furnished but the furniture is really old, try and negotiate your way out of like getting rid of that, and try and get the landlord to get rid of that instead.
Is that to save you cost on the removal of the
furniture?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Like okay.
Loads of things. So there's a lot of ways you can really figure out a way on how to save costs. Like I said, like when you go to a landlord, you can always negotiate your way out of doing like a guarantor, so you won't have to pay like a referencing fee, stuff like that.
Okay. You spoke a lot earlier about your systems and your processes. It's something that I'm guilty of not doing as well as I should be. But I've spoken to a lot of people who just start out in business and property, and they always say, when I get X amount of properties, then I'll start to systemize my business. But what's your take on that? And when is the right time to systemize?
I think systemize as early as you possibly can. Even if you only have one property, if you can afford to bring on a VA, like bring it on, because then you can go and that spares you time to do income generating tasks. So going out to go get more properties. The processes and systems kind of fall hand in hand, because your system is basically, it would be your channel manager, which basically manages all the OTAs, the online travel agencies that you advertise on, so you don't get double bookings, which are two bookings that are coming in at the same time. And using that, you can then automate messages, you can automate check-in messages, you can automate checkout messages, and also with some of these channel managers, you can create cleaner logins. So your cleaners know exactly when a guest is checking out, when a guest is checking in, so they can go in and do it. And if you want to be doubly sure of who's coming in, who's coming out the property, you can always just put in a Ring camera to track that. Make sure and that way you can also make sure that there's no lost keys and things like that. So all these things fall hand in hand. You can invest it little by little as you're going through. Maybe you don't need to have the Ring camera at the start. Maybe you can just invest in the channel manager at first, and then later on when you're making a bit more money, then you can invest in the Ring camera. Just loads of things. And also you're going to learn these things as you go anyways. It's like it's practice. But like having 2 keys on sites, 1 spare, 1 for the guests, and then having inventory in the property, cleaners notifying you when it's running low, then you can literally directly order it to the property while the cleaners are there, so then they can collect it, or actually deliver it to the cleaners office themselves, so they can bring it down and replace everything. So there's a lot of ways, but you have to kind of play it by ear. But as long as you're trying to make sure that you aren't being lax, always be proactive, always check your listing, see how it's performing. That's the only thing you can do, really.
Yeah. What was the first thing you systemized in your business?
Definitely like using a channel manager. I did that straight away because I didn't want to risk any double bookings.
Yeah. Is that a person or is that software? Is that a system?
It's a software, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Software. So from the channel manager, I can collect security deposits. From the channel manager, I can do check-in, check-out messages. In the check-in messages, I literally attach a video of how to unlock the door. Yeah. I attach the guest manual, so it reduces the amount of questions they have for me. That saves me time, and also making sure that the cleaners get it. It took me a while to find like really good cleaners. A lot of SA operators say this as well, because cleaners are literally the crux of your business. And the minute you find really good cleaners, everything all falls into place, and they know to make sure the heating is off once guests leave. They know that there's going to be the toilet roll is almost down, so they're going to let you know, so then you can replace it.
Yeah.
All these things, and you'll get a system going eventually. It doesn't have to be like like a standard operating procedure where it's like written down bullet point by bullet point, but it can be something like as informal as them WhatsApping you, should I do this, should I do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. You touched upon cleaners there. I mean, I know a lot of people that do rent to rent as well, and they talk about cleaners, again, like you said, being the the crux of the business. So how do you go about choosing and selecting the right cleaner, vetting them, etc.? How's the best way to do
it? You putting them to the test, basically. That's the only way. You can't, like, obviously everyone's going to perform well if you're asking them questions, because they want a customer, they want a client. But once they go into the property, kind of time them if you can. I had cleaners where they've gone in and out in half an hour, which is ridiculous. There's no way you can clean an entire property, change the linens in half an hour, and it's thorough. So they have to at least spend like around 2 hours to clean the property, and they have to make sure that they're doing everything. So you can always create a checklist for them. So things like clean the inside of the microwave, clear the inside of the fridge, make sure the bathroom's clean, all these things. You can send to them, but it's just a matter of them adhering to it. And you can go in and check afterwards. So that's the only thing. I would just like be around for that and making sure that they are doing their job, and if not, then you can literally just cut them off then and there, because they're not doing what they promised, basically, which is to clean.
Okay. So we had some questions in on my Instagram story. So it's again, this is a thing that I like to do, put something out there for people to ask questions. Are you happy to field some questions?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So this one made me laugh. The first question I actually had received was, someone just said the truth, laugh out loud, and that was in response to how we how do you start an SA business, basically what's the realities behind it. So someone just said the truth. What's your take on that?
I mean, that's a good question. Literally, it's blood, sweat and tears. A lot of people gloss over it, but it's a lot of hard work, because you have to remember, when you get the keys to the property and you're paying rent, that means you're burning through money. So you need to get the property live as soon as possible. And I don't know if you ever tried to furnish a property within a week. It's a lot of hard work. It's furnishing, it's like flat pack assembly, it is staging, making sure everything looks nice. It's carrying these big bulks of toilet roll from your car. Your car is going to be jam packed, by the way, when you're trying to furnish a property. Imagine doing that, or driving on the motorway with 20 loo rolls behind you and a mattress. But it is a lot of hard work, but it's definitely worth it, because once, like I always say this, once you do it once, it becomes a lot easier. Once you finish a property once within the week, it becomes you know what to do. It won't take as long the next time. Same thing with securing a property. It won't take as long the next time when you're pitching, because it took me, I think, a few months before I found my first one. Then after that, the second two came pretty naturally. So once the ball has to roll, basically.
All right. I'll pick a couple of more because I've got a little game that I want to play with you as well. So, what are some of the common challenges you faced in managing service accommodation, and how have you overcome them?
The common challenges. I think the fear of the unknown. When you get a property, you don't, like I said, you don't have no full way of knowing whether it's going to be occupied. So all the best you can do is be proactive. So make sure you're checking your listing. Make sure you're doing things to generate bookings. Don't just rely on Booking.com and Airbnb. There's so many other ways to get bookings as well. So I think it's literally just that. Just be monitor and be reactive, and basically make strategic decisions.
Yeah. You just answered a bit of the next question, which I wanted to ask myself, actually. So someone's asked, how do you actually go about marketing your properties and getting business?
Yeah, so you can do it quite a few ways. You can do it like the old-fashioned way, making leaflets, going to contractor sites, going to Premier Inn car parks, and then putting it on the windshield, because a lot of people staying there are usually either business commuters or contractors or relocators. Or you can go with partner agencies. They bring in a lot of direct bookings. They work with a number of companies on a direct basis. And then once they bring you bookings, they can invoice you. Other ways is just to go on community groups. So go on Facebook, say, oh, by the way, I have a property. If anyone's doing like a staycation, we have this.
Yeah.
So yeah, the avenues are endless.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned before about one of the objections you get from landlords is they say, is this subletting and is it legal? So someone's asked about, what legal considerations do people starting rent to rent need to be aware of?
Just make sure, if it's an apartment, make sure the building management knows. If it's a house, only the landlord needs to know. But you also need to make sure that the mortgage provider knows, the home insurance provider knows. And like I said, if it's an apartment, the head lease allows it.
Yeah.
Those are the main legal implications, because at the end of the day, they can always boot you out as well. And you don't want to do that if you've already furnished it and put down a lot of money for it.
Yeah. And how difficult is it then when you're notifying those companies? Is it just a paper exercise, or is it?
No, it's literally the landlord's responsibility. So you just tell the landlord, by the way, you need to make this person aware, that person aware, and then they'll go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So in my day job, I work in a technology field. So technology is a big thing to me, and I love tech. Someone said, in the age of technology, how do you leverage tools and platforms to streamline operations of your business? I know you touched upon this a little bit, but yeah, how are you leveraging technology to?
Yeah, definitely use a Channel Manager, which is a software that links directly to your booking. If you want to use ChatGPT to create like your script, go ahead and then edit it as you go along, because you kind of need something as a basis.
Yeah.
And then edit it to make it more, to make it sound more like yourself.
Yeah.
And that's essentially it. I don't think there's any other ways other than just, like I said, going through all the avenues like I mentioned before.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Ready to play a game?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's more of a quiz. I'm calling it the quick stay quiz. Yeah, bit of a service accommodation little connotation there. Your favourite type of service accommodation to manage or stay in?
Apartments.
Most challenging aspect of negotiating with property owners?
Finding ones that get it.
Top amenity that guests consistently appreciate?
Wi-Fi.
Preferred platform for marketing your essays?
Airbnb.
Most unusual guest request you've encountered?
How to put a key in the door. No, genuinely.
What?
How to turn the key in the door.
How did you answer that? Please share.
I showed them the video. Oh, yeah.
Brilliant. Favorite city for service accommodation?
London.
Biggest misconception about the rent-to-rent model?
That you can't do it if it's in London because of the 90-day rule.
Key factor in achieving high guest satisfaction?
Lots of messages, follow-ups.
This follows on nicely. Preferred method of handling guest complaints?
Sorry you felt that way.
Important quality in an SA property manager.
Diligence.
Love that. Most rewarding experience as an SA operator.
The positive reviews.
Favorite aspect of the industry.
The networking.
Must-have item in every SA unit.
Keys.
Keys.
You need to have that.
Your favorite travel destination.
Dubai.
And finally, one thing you wish you knew when you started in the industry.
It's going to take time.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Before we wrap up then, Lina, just final thoughts from you for anyone looking to start a rent-to-rent service accommodation business. What advice would you give to them?
Hang in there. It's going to be tough at the start, but everyone feels the same way. You're not alone in it. Just keep at it. I know it's really cliche for people to hear that, just keep at it, keep going. But that is genuinely the case. And if you're not getting a result, then that means you're not trying hard enough. I know it sounds harsh, but genuinely that is the case, because you could always be doing more. So keep your chin up, keep going, and your hard work will pay off.
Oh, brilliant. Lina, it's been a pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you for coming on. How do people connect with you, finally?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube. They're all the same username, Lina Akhtar.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.